Hey, what's up, my friends? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Victor, and I help people navigate through their awakening process. And today I'm going to talk about something that is quite common for people going through this, and that is the sudden, maybe not sudden, but the intense desire, feeling, intuitive nudge to move, to leave something big. The call to, again, leave your present situation, which is starting to become very unfulfilling and undesirable and sometimes negative, and go off on this crazy leap of faith. Oftentimes, literally, leaving where you live, and you feel guided and inspired and excited to move to another location. This is something that I know comes up in my awakening group from time to time, and I wanted to kind of address this. The call to adventure, as this popular author Joseph Campbell always he talks about this in his book A Hero with a Thousand Faces, and that is something. It's part of what he describes as a hero's journey. It's just, again, the desire, the really not so much always backed, rarely backed with logic and legitimate reasoning, yet a strong impulse to go and do something that sort of rips you out of your predictable, safe little life. You don't know how it's going to unfold. You don't sometimes even know where you want to go. You just know you got to get out of where you are because the walls are just closing in on you and life is sort of pushing you out there. But the mind goes nutty with this because it's always like, wow. Sometimes we feel inspired to do something, and in those moments we feel very hopeful and optimistic and positive, but it's just a matter of time typically before the mind sort of comes on board and says, what's that? You want to move? Do you have a job lined up? What about your friends and family? You got to sell your place. That's going to be a lot. Have you thought about this? There's that, which is that's sort of a big thing as well. But then there's the nerves, the feelings, maybe even the dreams of like feeling very insecure, very afraid, that it makes it a very tough thing, a tough box to break out of. But it's very common. It's a very common situation to find yourself in, and in my experience, the desire to leave, move, go forth only grows, and it's so much to the point where life starts to actually manifest and arrange itself, and will give you more and more clear evidence as to why you got to get off your ass and get the hell out of Dodge now. I felt inspired to make this video because I just spoke to someone today she's a 25-year-old girl, and she lived in Alaska her whole life, born and raised, real, obviously not a very densely populated area, and it says all she ever knew, and she felt guided just to leave, to quit her job and to get the hell out of there, and she did that, and now she's traveling all over the world, just kind of like straight up exploded into like this big world. And I was just very impressed with that. I thought she had a very good example of courage because she didn't have it all figured out. But what she was experiencing was new experiences that had a lot of excitement, anticipation, and passion. And that's what life is about. That's what you're going to be trading. You're going to be trading safety and security, which is going to only continue to be seen more clearly as just an illusion, not real safety, and you're replacing that illusory safety net for a brand new life of just excitement. There's something exhilarating about stepping into the unknown. And there are no guarantees, and you know that. I could tell you, well, anyone who does this is going to have a good old time. It's not like that. There are no guarantees, and I think we all know that deep down. But that's what makes it so freaking exciting. That's what will provoke you to rise to the occasion and to do whatever it is that you got to do to make it have been worth your while. This is something I've done on more than one occasion. I experienced this exact same call to adventure in the very beginning of my spiritual, it was shortly after my Kundalini awakening, about I don't know, 10 years ago. It was a long time ago. And as a result of this like awakening experience, I started to, just like a lot of you guys, see everything differently. There was a lot of things about my neighborhood, about my house, about the people in my life, about my job, about everything that I never saw before. Or maybe I saw it, but it never affected me. But suddenly, the energy, the actual energy of my neighborhood started to affect me. In fact, there was a time where me and my wife would always drive like a half hour to the other side of town, which we just could instantly feel was a little bit of a better and lighter vibration. We'd drive long distances just to go out to eat and hang out and go to parks there. And whenever we came back, on that drive, I remember the drives back, we could actually feel we were heading into denser territory, and it was always just very depressing. But at the same time, we were like, dude, is this enough to go on? We had like the ideas would come and go, but maybe you should move. Maybe you should sell the house. I was like, dude, just based on our own suddenly new perception of the energy, that's not enough to go on. We can't just do that. It was a nice house. We kept saying on paper, you got a nice situation, man. You got a nice job. You got a nice little lifestyle. There's really nothing to worry about. You're just sitting fat, just sitting pretty, just chilling out all the time. You really had no real legitimate concern, And then weird shit started happening. I had this, at the time I had this awesome pit bull named Maynard. Just an awesome dog. I loved him so much. And my neighbor was one of those people who were just terrified of pit bulls. I never knew this. But one day I heard him start yelling at my dog. My dog was outside. We had like a nice fence and everything. And I heard him like screaming at my dog. So I ran out there and I saw this guy kicked in my fence. He like dented in my fence trying to get at my dog. And he just started yelling at me and yelling at the dog. Well, I was like, what the hell what's the matter, man? And all of a sudden, it was just this weird situation where this doofus brought another dog up to my fence. And the two dogs kind of went at it for a second. The guy brought that situation on himself. Anyway, that pissed me off at the time. I'm not going to go into that. But that was like, oh, wow. All of a sudden, our neighbor hates us. It never occurred. I never really talked to this guy very much. And then after that, he started doing all this weird shit. We used to have people cut our lawn, and they would like have to go kind of through his yard a little bit to get to our backyard because we had that fence. Well, he eventually, this grown man, tied a string from my fence to his house, basically saying, no more bringing the grass cutters through there. Just weird, immature stuff like that. Another thing happened where my wife, she was doing hair out of the house at the time. We had a little salon in our house, actually. And she made the mistake of doing the neighbor's daughter's hair. This girl, she wanted her hair purple. And my wife, she's a real good hairdresser. She explained, listen, I can do purple for you, but it's gonna wash out. Right when you wash your hair, it's gonna change. And you might not like where it fades. This color fades quickly. I don't care, I want it anyway. Okay, fine. So my wife did this girl's hair and said, listen, whatever you do, don't wash it for a few days because it's going to wash right out. Don't wash it. Okay. The girl goes home, washes her hair instantly. It washes out just as she was warned. And then the mom on Sunday morning wants to bring her back over and have us fix it. And we're like, well, listen, man, we explained to your daughter that, anyway. So, and then all of a sudden, this freaking lady straight up turned on us, started gossiping about us, turned all the neighbors against us. So every time we came home, there was all these looky-loo, judgmental eyes on us, and everyone just sort of shunned us in a fairly overt and obvious way. So it was just an incredibly uncomfortable place to live in, just from those situations. And we were like, man, we don't want our daughter living with this feel. We could just feel the immature judgment from all the whole neighborhood basically turned on us from those couple of really bizarre incidents. So that sort of thing started happening, more and more compelling us. The straw that broke the camel's back was, at the time I was growing pot. I was growing weed in my basement illegally. This is before it was legal, I think. And I could tell that that same little looky-loo lady came over and made a comment about it, kind of a subtle comment, which kind of was a way of saying, I know what you're doing, buddy. And then she like hired a private investigator to sit outside of our house. Again, all this weird random stuff. That's not really, it might be boring to hear about, but all this stuff started happening towards we just got to get the fuck out of here, basically. You know, the neighbor who didn't like my dog, he was rumored to have killed dogs before. So we're like, we got to save Maynard's life. You know, again, life just started to push us out. We knew before all this transpired that this is not our place. This is not ideal. We knew deep down that our perception of the energy was basically saying like, this, you're not going to be happy here. But our minds, again, were clinging to that safety. Well, as we clung, life started showing us more bold examples of why. Like, you stick around in an incompatible energy, life is going to kind of turn on you and eventually push you out one way or another. What's it going to take, buddy? So that was sort of when we said, okay, we're getting out of here. But we didn't know where we were going. That was the push out, but out where? We didn't know what to do. So we did what we did this time. We did this a long time ago. We bought an RV, sold our house, we bought an RV, and we just freaking hit the road, man. And that's a whole nother tale. But I'm not going to tell you it was without stress. It came with a lot of its own issues, as you could imagine. A lot of real legitimate issues, you know. I remember the first day we set off into when we finally sold our house and I got into my RV and we finally set off. I realized, wow, this is a big thing that you've never driven before at all. This is pretty freaking scary. As a 37-foot fifth wheel at the time. Never driven anything, never pulled a little trailer or anything. And just that first night, I remember running into weird problems where I pulled into a parking lot I shouldn't have pulled into, and I got myself stuck and backed into a light post and smashed the back of the RV on day one. You know, it was in that moment like, what have you done? This is the stupidest thing I've ever done. So it might be like that a little bit, but it doesn't matter, because overall I can look back and I thank God I did. I think I had the courage to have done that, because my life I would have never been happy there. And my life has blossomed and taken so many exciting and just mind-blowing twists and turns. And from that point forward, my life has been a very unpredictable and yet awesome growth-catalyzing adventure. And that's what you get. You get a life that you can die on your deathbed and be very happy you live. Like, wow, I really gave life my all. It wasn't always easy, but it was a lot of fun. It was exciting, and I learned a lot about my life, about reality, about myself as a soul, and I can rest my head now very happy. So hopefully that helps you in some way, guys. I will speak to you tomorrow. Have an amazing day. Peace.